So, still reading from Killjoy's. I don't know if you can see that. Critique of Modern Paternalism. Starting on page 100, because I think this is relevant to what we see happening today. How do we come up with the idea that we need to protect society from itself and keep it from collapse and basically just do what we believe as paternalists and people that write public health is the most appropriate action for how we handle a situation like, say, an infectious disease breakout. So, let me just start reading here. Addiction is a poorly defined concept. Some products appear to have addictive properties, and yet most users never become addicted to them. Most drug users, drinkers, and gamblers do not become junkies, alcoholics, or compulsive gamblers. Stanton Peele, one of the world's leading experts on addiction, says that things aren't in themselves addictive, and argues that addiction is a constantly shifting cultural concept, not a biological entity. Leaving that debate to one side, let us assume that there is some proportion of tobacco and alcohol users who find it physically or emotionally difficult to reduce their consumption. Let us also assume that there is something inherent in tobacco and alcohol that makes compulsive behavior more likely than with an average product. If so, it is an intractable problem, just as underage consumption is an intractable problem. In a society that allows adults to buy these products, there will always be people under the age of 18 who get their hands on them, and there will always be adults who become dependent on them. The question is how the government should respond. Addiction and underage naivety are currently addressed by mandating warnings on packs and banning the sale of tobacco and alcohol to those under the age of 18. Both policies can be justified by conventional liberal and economic arguments, but public health campaigners argue that much more should be done and invariably invoke children as their justification. Campaigners implore us to think of the children every time they demand tax rises, advertising bans, graphic warnings, minimum pricing, plain packaging, licensing restrictions, and retail display bans. Even blatantly paternalistic policies such as television censorship and outdoor smoking bans are proposed on the grounds that children should be protected from the sight of people smoking. This tenuous justification for outdoor smoking bans is, as Leonard Glantz notes, an example of the extent to which public health advocates go to deny that their acts are paternalistic and to pretend that their actions are designed to protect others. Excuse me for a second. So we start off with what could be considered a justifiable response to something that could be considered dangerous for society or something that is risky to engage in. And we always start from the right place. Obviously, you want to protect children from things, obviously. But here's what someone who writes about this stuff said about smoking. Even some zealots and anti-smoking campaigners have expressed their doubts about this policy. In 2000, the editor of the anti-smoking magazine Tobacco Control wrote, "We need to ask whether efforts to prevent people from smoking outdoors risk besmirching tobacco control advocates as the embodiment of intolerant paternalistic busybodies who, not content to protecting their own health, want to force smokers not to smoke." How far is too far? Paternalism is appropriate in the case of children, but that is what parents and guardians are for. Concerns about the welfare of children do not give paternalists carte blanche to pass coercive laws that have a negative impact on adult consumers. One can accept that a youthful naivete, and addiction restrict rational choice on a psychological level without supporting policies that restrict free choice in the most literal way. For example, a ban on the sale of tobacco to under 18s is uncontroversial, but in some parts of the world, this has been extended to under 21s. This is not on the basis that 20-year-olds are children, but because most adult smokers start smoking before the age of 21. That's from the Campaign for Tobacco-Free Kids. Some public health paternalists want to go further and ban anybody born after a certain year, usually 2000, from ever buying tobacco, a form of incremental prohibition that would eventually cover the entire adult population. Meanwhile, anti-tobacco policies, which are said to be justified because they deter children from smoking and help smokers give up, are seamlessly transferred to food and soft drinks, which are neither addictive nor age-restricted. A society which permits any infringement on liberty in the hopes of discouraging children and addicts is a society in which all adults are treated like children. Public health measures ostensibly designed to deter some teenagers from making a decision which, due to their immaturity, might not be wholly rational, have a more profound effect on millions of adult consumers whose choices are constrained by law. It is not disputed that children and addicts will, at times, make decisions that fall short of the economist's vision of a perfect consumer. The problem is that paternalism takes everybody further away from that ideal. This is the idea that if we baby people too much, they become babies. This is true. Think of your own children. Think of... You've heard the old story of you don't tie your kids' shoelaces once they've figured out how to do it. You push them towards doing it because if you let them get what they want, unless you have a rare child, they'll be quite happy to let you keep doing it for the rest of their lives. They'll be quite happy to stay home in the basement and play video games instead of going to get a job, unless they get forced to go out of the house and do it. They'll be quite happy to watch television instead of doing homework and learning about the world and what's going on around them. It's a default position. Human beings... It has to do with our neurochemistry and the way that our brain tries to conserve power in every conceivable way at all times. There's always something that our brain consciousness is shutting out from our immediate experience. That's not because it's just too complicated to take everything in. Indeed, when you sit and you meditate, the whole point is you focus on nothing and everything at the same time. You're opening your mind to the possibilities of everything around you. But you're also focusing on nothing in particular. That's training your mind to be silent and basically just take in all stimuli from around you, but not let it be in control of you. This is a practice at centering brain activity, which can be chaotic because there's so many distractions in life. But your brain wants to be distracted from doing the things that you should be doing that require concentration and effort. You have to trick your brain into concentrating because it just wants to do the laziest possible action. It just wants to wander around. It just wants to be... I can't speak for everybody else. I can speak for myself. My brain just wants to be distracted by things, as children's brains do. But you have to focus on something in order to achieve something else, which is why paternalists, they basically all have now focused on this area of what can we do to constrain people's behaviors. And the idea starts off simple enough. We just want to police children. And once they get through with that, they have to have somewhere to go because they're focused on accomplishing a goal. And the goal, right from the start, obviously, is to stop people from doing something that's bad for them. So you start small, you work towards it, you get bigger and bigger. By the way, if you actually achieve results, decent results with what it is that you're trying to accomplish, you might work yourself out of a job. So that's why these people always have to have a new target to work towards. That's why there's always got to be a new stop sign. There's always got to be someone crusading for a lower speed limit to protect people from themselves. It's not that they've become worse drivers or we think they're going to go out of control if we don't do something about it. It's that we see problems that need to be fixed because we think it's our job to fix them for other people. But when you baby people, so much, you get situations like you see today, where going to the store is now a whole hour-long project where you have to wait in line and queue up and stand 6 feet apart from the people in front of you. This is the paternalists' world. This is why I keep bringing up this book. This is what these people who want to protect us from everything would like to see. And is it sane? Is it rational to do what we're doing right now? It goes against everything that we understand about immunology and the way that human beings interact with one another, and what makes us happy and what makes life worth living. And we do it at the expense of all that. We're doing all these things and enacting all these measures at the expense of what human life is, to protect ourselves from something that is so minuscule. It's like if you're a regular healthy person, you have a 99.75% chance of having any negative side effects from this thing. I'm not saying there's not rare cases where people do in fact get sick. If you go watch the Rhonda Patrick episode, Dr. Rhonda Patrick on Joe Rogan recently, she'll talk about why she believes, and she's much smarter than me, but why she believes the reason that we're seeing this disproportionately affect the black population is because they're low on vitamin D. She thinks that really doing some serious vitamin D and therapy enhancement of people's nutritional regimen would help them pass this thing. And now I just saw an article yesterday talking about how vitamin D, they're really studying what the possible benefits are of fighting, I don't want to call it COVID, they called it COVID in the article, SARS-2, the benefits of fighting SARS-2 by having proper vitamin D in your system. I'm not going to go into why black people would have less vitamin D in their system. If you don't know that, just go watch the Dr. Rhonda Patrick episode. It seems like you have some learning to do. But the point being that, does this make sense? Is it rational that we're shutting down society for something that does not affect most people? Really, we're treating all people like children because we start off thinking that way, and we make our plans for the lowest common denominator in order to protect the whole, the collective. And then we enact those plans. We prepare for them. Like Event 201 was this, Bill Gates goes around and he gyms up the fear, and he goes and he does TED Talks and he talks about the threat from coronavirus and why it's going to kill so many people. But what he doesn't talk about, he thinks about things exponentially. Everything is just straight up math oriented. If it gets to this many people, and we've seen that this many people will die if they get it, that means you just extrapolate those numbers out and you're going to have this many dead people. But is that true? There's always vulnerable people in society. What takes them out? It's not simply old age. People very rarely just go to sleep and don't wake up. It does happen, but usually it would be due to heart failure or something like that. But a lot of times, people get sick and they just stop fighting. They give up. Their body was weak. They're tired. You can also cause acute stress by giving people heart attacks if you make them panic. Tell them that they've got something that's going to kill them. But the point, I'm going off course here. The point being that there's always a segment of society that's going to be skimmed off the top. I hate to be so morbid about this, but it's just, it happens every year. The numbers are not different. I've yet to see somebody point out somewhere where the numbers are off course for a seasonal illness that kills people. I haven't seen it. If you've seen it, please post it here, because I haven't seen it. So there's always that vulnerable group, and they're going to get sick. And you can't stop that. No matter how much you have good intentions for protecting society or whatever it is you're trying to do, whatever you believe you're trying to do, when you take this one-size-fits-all policy and you apply it to everyone, everywhere, why do you think this thing has happened worldwide? Where do you think the instructions come from? They come from the UN. Where do you think paternalists go where they think they can have the most effect? They study about what they think they should be doing. They study about pushing people and nudging people, and they have a whole literature on this stuff and how you can affect people's thought processes and what kind of things you can do to enact it. And then, the other side of that is that you can come up with policies designed to protect people if this thing happens. And then all those things get told to people who have the best intentions, I believe. And then they enact them when the thing that they think that they are seeing happening and will affect this great number of people, they need to protect people from it. But is it true? Is it true that this thing will just keep going exponentially and not stop? And there seems to be no evidence for that anywhere. It's the curve flattened itself. They were talking about flatten the curve. The curve flattened itself. And we enacted all these policies to stop it from happening when it was already too late. And the people that were going to die, unfortunately, most of them, the vast majority, again, 99.75. Where did I get the number from? Watch the High Wire episode that Del Bigtree just posted. Top 10 reasons something. And it was May 22nd went up. 2020. This doesn't affect regular people. And so what do we do? How should we handle society? We shouldn't do anything. This is the kind of thing that gets around and some people get sick, and that sucks. But improve your nutrition, improve your health. But what we're prescribing for society, they're not looking at the consequences. They don't think about that. Those are externalities to them. Now they see externalities and they add them into their equations. But they're very specific sort. I think these people are just really not looking at what's going on rationally. I think they're being completely irrational, because if you let people control your life, whose job it is, or at least what they think their job is to control your life, that's what they're going to do. Players are going to play. So, we have to take this seriously. And the damage that's being done, I mean, they're not economists. Well, I mean, there's a brand of economists in that line of thinking, but they're not business people. Maybe I'll put it that way. And business people understand what it takes to build something up. And it takes a lot more of coming from within than without. And that's always the point I'm trying to get across, is that you can't tell someone how to live their lives. You can try, but then they're going to reject you. That's why you see almost half the Canadian population saying they don't really agree with what's going on. There's some alternative force at work here. The alternative force is just that we've let too many... What's the word this fellow uses? We've let too many busybodies take control of our society. And, busybody's gonna busy. So maybe we should just tell them that thank you for your help and everything, but maybe you should just calm down now. And we should all get back to work, because none of this makes any sense. Hello, B. But it has to stop. It has to stop before some really big consequences get felt. And, it's probably too late in a lot of cases. But that's my ramble for this morning. Hope everybody has a great day.